Well, after days of wrangling with local leaders, the Prime Minister says a £60 million support package for Greater Manchester will be distributed to local councils in the region, effectively bypassing the Mayor, Andy Burnham. Talks between the government and local leaders ended in no agreement. At Prime Minister's questions, the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer accused the government of pitting regions against each other and of bargaining with people's lives. Here's our Deputy Political Editor, Vicki Young.
For months, life hasn't been normal anywhere in the UK. But slowly, more and more of us are being told to live once again under very tight restrictions, telling us who we can see, where we can travel, what stays open and what must close. Boris Johnson insisted today that the sacrifices are paying off, that the coronavirus isn't spreading as fast as it did in the spring.
Why is it so chaotic?
But he's been accused of reducing the amount of help going to workers whose businesses are ordered to shut.
There is no other country in Europe, Mr. Speaker, where so much support, so much help has been given to the population to get through this crisis, and we will continue to do that.
But that's not how the Mayor of Greater Manchester sees it. Negotiations over financial support for his area descended into mudslinging. After days of uncertainty, the Prime Minister announced that £60 million would now be given directly to councils.
People working in betting shops.
But the Labour leader says workers will be shortchanged because the new job support scheme pays less than the furlough scheme it's replacing.
Their rent and their mortgage won't be lower. Their food and their heating bills won't be lower, and that could last for months. Why can't the Prime Minister and the Chancellor understand this? Stop bargaining with people's lives, stop dividing communities, and provide the support that's needed in Manchester.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud that this government has already given Greater Manchester £1.1 billion in support for business.
Mind the gap, please.
And there's another row brewing about money with another Labour mayor. Sadiq Khan says London's transport network, TfL, needs a second bailout from the government. Ministers say that'll only happen if the mayor puts up fares and taxes.
Rather than punishing Londoners, playing party political games, let's get around a table and do a deal that's right for TfL, that's right for London, and that's right for our country.
As this pandemic drags on, the bills rack up and the arguments about how much the government should fork out will continue for months. Ministers insist that most of the negotiations have been straightforward. But the recent acrimony between some local leaders and central government suggests that politics is starting to get in the way. Back in the Commons, tempers have been spilling over too.
Excuse me, did the Honourable Lady just call me scum?
Order! 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 Order!
From the front bench, we will not have remarks like that. Not under any circumstances.
The row over funding for Greater Manchester isn't quite over, but with new restrictions imminent, politicians from all parties are urging people to follow the rules. Vicki Young, BBC News, Westminster.
Well, one of the big issues for millions of people living under Tier 2 restrictions, the high alert level, is that there's far less support for businesses than those in Tier 3. The hospitality industry calls it the worst of all worlds. Our economics editor Faisal Islam is with me now, and the Chancellor is expected to address this tomorrow?
Well, we're certainly expecting an announcement from the Chancellor of the Exchequer tomorrow in the House of Commons. And what we do know is that this issue is being discussed in private talks that were going on into the night. And it essentially boils down to this, that you have, as we've been hearing, kind of 3 tiers of restrictions across England in this case, but you only have 2 tiers of support, and the gap between the two is quite large, sort of 22% taxpayer support for wages versus 2/3, 66%. And so there's that area in the middle, as we've been hearing, where in essentially Tier 2, you don't have to shut down your pub or your restaurant, but your business model is not going to work, frankly, with these sorts of restrictions. There's some recognition of that within government, and there'll be some moves along those lines, if what I'm hearing is correct. I think it's something that a number of local leaders, especially some Conservative leaders, for example, the Mayor of the West Midlands, Andy Street, have said that they're concerned about. But in general, too, you know, when the Chancellor announced his winter economic plan, it was set against a backdrop of infections declining and the economic recovery beginning to take hold. That is no longer the situation, as we have seen. So I think we'll see some addressing of these issues tomorrow.
Faisal, thank you.